बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। सबसे पहले तो हस्तनीस्त और बिलखुसूसन कौसर साहब का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया मुझे यहाँ मौका देने के लिए कि मैं कुछ मौलाना रूम की जो मैंने सिलेक्शन किया है वो मैं आपके सामने पेश कर सकूँ। मैं रेनल्ड निकलसन की इंग्लिश ट्रांसलेशन से पढ़ूँगा कि फ़ारसी मुझे नहीं आती। तो ये जो मैंने सिलेक्शन की है, मैंने जब कौसर साहब से पूछा कि आप बताएं, तो उन्होंने कहा जो तुम्हें इस वक्त अपील कर रही हो, जो तुम्हारी सोल के लिए इम्पोर्टेंट हो, वो उस हिसाब से सिलेक्शन करो। तो जो मैंने कहानी चुनी है वो है उबलते हुए चनों के बारे में, बॉइलिंग चिकपीज़। और ये मुझे एक मौलाना रूम की बहुत पसंद है बात कि ही टेक्स समथिंग ऑर्डिनरी एंड ही टर्न्स इट इनटू समथिंग एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी। ही टेक्स द familiar and makes it unfamiliar. He takes the mundane and he describes spiritual realities by using it as a metaphor. और कभी कभी मैं सोचता हूँ शायद यही जिसको हम एल्केमी बुलाते हैं ये वो है कि उनकी जो वर्स है उसमें कितनी अल्केमिकल पावर है कि उसके ज़रिए से वो चनों के बेस मेटल को वो गोल्ड के अंदर कन्वर्ट करते हैं। आई ट्रूली थिंक इट्स समथिंग क्वाइट मैजिकल। और जो क्वेश्चन वो रेज़ करते हैं इस कहानी में वो एक बहुत यूनिवर्सल क्वेश्चन है जो कि ह्यूमन कंडीशन के लिए throughout history human beings have raised this question across cultures and across religions and faiths and creeds and races. वो है why do we suffer? Especially जो good people हैं वो क्यों suffer करते हैं? Why do bad things happen to good people, as we sometimes say? Is it because, in the words of one unknown source, life is a game and we are the playthings of the gods? Or is there a deeper reason? Is there a purpose behind our suffering? And I don't mean कि हम when I say why do we suffer कि what are the material causes कि वो खाने की डेथ हो गई या बिजनेस में लॉस हो गया। I mean spiritual reason क्या है हमारी suffering का, और spirituality हमें क्या सिखाती है कि what attitude should we have towards our suffering. जैसे शेक्सपियर कहता है कि the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, the whips and scorns of time, ये हमें क्यों इतना प्लेग करते हैं और हमारा इनकी तरफ क्या रवैया होना चाहिए। तो मैं शुरू करता हूँ रीडिंग। वो कहते हैं, look at the chickpea in the pot, how it leaps up when it is subjected to the fire. Look at the chickpea in the pot, how it leaps up when it is subjected to the fire. At the time of his being boiled, the chickpea comes up continually to the top of the pot and raises 100 cries, saying, "Why are you setting the fire on me? Since you bought and approved me, how are you turning me upside down?" The housewife goes on hitting it with the ladle. "No," she says, "boil nicely and don't jump away from one who makes the fire. I do not boil you because you are hateful to me. Nay, it is that you may get taste and savor, so that you may become nutriment and mingle with the vital spirit. This affliction of yours is not on account of your being despised. You, when green and fresh, were drinking water in the garden. You, when green and fresh, were drinking water in the garden. That water drinking was for the sake of this fire. That water drinking was for the sake of this fire. God's mercy is prior to his wrath, to the end that by God's mercy, the afflicted person may suffer affliction. God's mercy eternally preceded his wrath in order that the stock in trade, which is existence, should be acquired. For without pleasure, flesh and skin do not grow. Without pleasure, flesh and skin do not grow, and unless they grow, what shall the love of the friend consume? If Flesh and skin don't grow, what shall the love of the friend consume? If because of that requirement, acts of wrath come to pass, to the end that you may give up that stock in trade, yet again, afterwards, the grace of God will come in order to excuse the act of wrath, saying, now you have washed yourself clean and have leaped forth from the river of tribulation. The housewife says, O chickpea, you did feed in the springtime. Now pain has become your guest. Pain has become your guest. Treat him well. Pain has become your guest. Treat him well, so that the guest may return home giving thanks for his entertainment, and may relate your generosity in the presence of the king, so that the bestower of favor may come to you instead of the favor, and that all favors may envy you. And the housewife says, I am Khalil, I am Abraham, alayhi salam, and you are my son. Lay your head before the knife. Lo, I see in a dream that I shall sacrifice you. Lay your head before my wrath, with heart unmoved, that I may cut your throat like that of Ismail alayhi salam. I will cut off your head, but this head is the head that is immune from being cut off, from dying. Yet your giving yourself up is the object of God's eternal purpose. O Muslim, you must seek to give yourself up. Continue, O chickpea, to boil in tribulation, that neither existence nor self may remain to you. If you have formerly laughed in the earthly garden, yet you are the rose of the garden of the spirit and the spiritual eye. If you have been parted from the garden of water and earth, yet you have become food in the mouth into the living. Become nutriment and strength and thoughts. Formerly you were sap, now be a lion in the jungles. By God, you grew from God's attributes in the beginning. Go back nimbly and fleetly into his attributes. You came from the cloud and the sun and the sky, and then did you become diverse attributes and ascend to heaven. You came in the form of rain and heat. You will go into the goodly divine attributes. You were a part of the sun and the cloud and the stars. You became soul and action and speech and thoughts. The existence of the animal arose from the death of the plant. Hence the command, slay me, O trusty friends, is right. Since there is such a victory for us after the checkmate of death, the words, verily in my being slain there is a life, are true. Action and speech and sincerity became the food of the angel, so that by means of this ladder he mounted to heaven. Just as when that morsel became the food of man, it mounted from the state of inanimateness and became possessed of a soul. So even the chickpea acquires a soul when it enters into the human being. As regards this topic, a far-reaching explanation will be given in another place. The caravan of spirits is incessantly arriving from heaven, that they may traffic on earth and go back again. Go then, sweetly and gladly, with free will, not with bitterness and loathing, like a thief. So what he's saying is to have almost a celebratory attitude towards our suffering. And this is an idea which, again, you find across spiritual traditions, that wisdom can only come through suffering. So suffering is not something, and जब हम अपने आप को आजमाइश में पाते हैं, जब हम अपने आप को तकलीफ में पाते हैं, so it is not something which is undesirable. It is the very means through which we become worthy of God's love, worthy of receiving something, because unless you give something, you will not receive anything. So this is the kind of attitude he is promoting towards suffering, कि आप खुश हो, आप क्योंकि इसी ज़रिए से आपने एक नया फॉर्म पाना है. When you have endured bitterness through self-mortification, your heart is filled with blood like a grape. Then you will escape from all bitterness. If a dog is not kept for hunting, he has no collar. The raw and unboiled is not but the insipid. So it's very interesting. He's turning everything on its head. He's turning everything upside down. He's saying जिस person की, जिस शख्स की, जिन individuals की ज़िंदगी में आसानी है और खुशियाँ हैं और कोई तकलीफ़ें नहीं हैं, that is actually the one you should be pitying. Because that is the person who will not grow. You cannot grow unless you suffer. Suffering is the key to growth. So he's going against this idea that life is a game and we are the playthings of the gods. No, there is a purpose behind our suffering, and that purpose is to make us grow if we are willing to see that purpose. The chickpea said, "Since this is so, O lady, I will gladly boil. Give me help in certainty." So this is what he's talking about, कि आपको certainty की ज़रूरत है. आपको ये यकीन हो, ये फेथ हो कि यार जिस तकलीफ़ के थ्रू मैं जा रहा हूँ, ये मेरी बेहतरी के लिए है. And this is the attitude that the moment should have towards tribulation, towards suffering. I will gladly boil. Give me help in certainty. In this boiling, you are, as it were, my architect. Smite me with the skimming spoon, for you smite very delightfully. I am as the elephant. Beat and brand my head, that I may not dream of Hindustan and its gardens, so that I may yield myself and submit to the boiling, to the end that I may find a way to the embrace of the beloved. To the end that I may find a way to the embrace of the beloved. So this attitude towards suffering is not, you are not meant to derive some kind of sadistic or masochistic pleasure from it. It is because you have the end in mind. कि इसका जो एंड है वो बहुत मुखलिस है, वो बहुत खालिस है, वो मेरे बिलवेड के साथ, मेरे रब के साथ यूनियन है. So this suffering is a process of purification, and it is always painful to be purified. The housewife says to it, "Formerly I, like you, was a part of the earth. After I had drunk a cup of fiery self-mortification, then I became an acceptable and worthy one." Now, who is the housewife? I am not an expert on Rumi, but I believe this is your murshid, this is your guide, this is the person who shows you the path. And जो आपका मुर्शिद भी होता है, जो assuming कि वो एक पहुंचा हुआ इंसान है, he's got somewhere in this journey, what is important to remember is that even that murshid used to be like you. That murshid also had to go through a journey of self-mortification, of suffering. वो आपको खुद एक process के through गुजरा है, अब वो आपको लेके जा रहा है. Because that's what has made him worthy or her worthy. So she says, formerly I too was a part of the earth. After I drank a cup of fiery self-mortification, then I became an acceptable and a worthy one. For a long time, I boiled in the world of time. For another long time in the pot of the body. By reason of these two boilings, I became a source of strength to the senses. Look at how he's honoring suffering. Because he says, this is because of this reason that I came to where I am. और इसका आपको बहुत अच्छा एग्जाम्पल आपको फिजिकल लेवल पे मिल जाता है, जहाँ पे हम I don't know some if you go to gym, but it's a very famous slogan, no pain, no gain. This is also true of the spiritual journey, no pain, no gain. But gym is for the beauty of the body. This spiritual suffering is for the sake of union with God. The intention is completely different. Spiritual gym. It's like a spiritual gymnasium. So she says, by reason of these two boilings, I became a source of strength to the senses. I became animal spirit, and then I became your teacher. While I was in the inanimate state, I used to say to myself, you are running to and fro in agitation to the end that you may become endued with knowledge and spiritual qualities. Again, it's line after line is full of such beautiful pearls of wisdom. And they're also presented in such a poetic and in a way that delights the soul. तो अब वो कह रहा है कि जब आप उस स्टेट में होते हो जहाँ पे आप एजिटेशन में टू एंड फ्रो यू आर गोइंग, व्हाट शुड यू से टू योरसेल्फ? I said to myself, that you are doing this to the end that you may become endued with knowledge and spiritual qualities. So remind yourself of the end. And be certain that the end is positive, that the end is union with the beloved in a purified state. Suffering is what will make you worthy. So the process of becoming worthy is for the sake of that union. And while you are going through that pain, that anguish, that is the time to remind yourself कि ये क्यों हो रहा है? ये मेरी purification हो रही है. That's what you should say to yourself. So he's giving you a kind of instruction manual on how to deal with the sufferings of this world. And let us not forget that the prophets of God, peace be upon them, like Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam and Hazrat Yunus alayhi salam, and all of them, they went through an extraordinary amount of suffering, more than the common people like you and myself. So this is a kind of celebration of suffering. Since I have become an animal spirit, now let me boil once more and pass beyond animality. Beseech God continually that you may not stumble over these deep sayings and that you may arrive at the journey's end. For many have been led astray by the Quran, and by clinging to that rope, a multitude have fallen into the well. There is no fault in the rope, O perverse man, inasmuch as you had no desire for reaching to the top. Thank you, everybody. हाँ जी प्लीज़.
इब्राहिम अलैहिस्सलाम के वाक़े के में कहा था, जो आपने कहा है कि चिकपीस उबर रहे हैं कि हूँ आतिश नमरूद के शोलों में भी खामोश, मैं बंदा मोमिन हूँ नहीं दाना इस बंद. कि वो जो आग में खामोशी से भस्म हो जाता है, मैं वो हूँ. मैं वो नहीं हूँ कि जो पटाखे छोड़ने लग जाए.
सुभान अल्लाह.
आपने बताई कि
बहुत मेहरबानी. थैंक यू जी, बहुत बहुत मेहरबानी.